last week we were having a great time on the pod. And
Like we always do.
all of a sudden it reached 6:53 and we had a 5-a-side grand final at 7:20.
Correct.
And I really felt like we left a lot on the field in that podcast in that we went from, wow, the Zimmerman telegram is not actually about Hans Zimmer to, oh my goodness, Wilson had a stroke and died and he's out and gone. And then we moved
And
on.
his wife
Yeah.
ran the show for a year. And
Yeah.
then- Yep.
I felt that a little bit, but also
Your mind
it was
elsewhere,
it was
wasn't
time to go. Yeah, it was time.
I felt
Time
it
to
also was
go.
indicative of then how he performed the grand final.
Oh, yeah. Well, we
You were
lost.
still
Yeah.
thinking about Woodrow, weren't you? Guys, we need to function like a League of Nations.
I did feel that we took quite a big tangent with Blake Lively, but then we really pulled it back to be quite strong at the end. So we're a little bit more disciplined this week.
Is there any Blake chat today?
Well,
We'll
if
see,
we can-
we'll
if
see,
we can
we'll
angle
see,
it.
we'll see.
I listened back and I'm like, oh, is that a bit harsh? And then more Blake Lively hate came on my feed to just confirm what I'm saying. So I just went looking for what validated my opinion rather than potentially stretching
Okay.
my mind.
Nice.
We are going to continue the Woodrow Wilson chat because I don't think we quite got enough in last time. And today we'll focus around the Paris Peace Conferences at the end of World War One. So,
What a city.
Great. Yeah. We've just come back from a Paris Peace Conference, if you will. By that, I mean a global sporting peace.
you did go to Versailles?
No.
I thought
I've
with the
been.
fencing?
No,
No,
the Versailles.
no.
That was in the Grand Palace
Ah,
Yeah.
in Paris.
The equestrian was at Versailles,
Ah,
I
the
believe.
equestrian.
Very pomp.
Yeah. Saint-Germain?
What?
Trianon? Nul? And,
You're just
Je-
saying the words really quickly.
Je m'appelle Ben.
yeah, just listing the different places where they signed treaties in Paris.
Oh,
Sure.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
Great.
Just, yeah.
Yeah.
Champs-Élysées-Macas.
I didn't.
Peter Saint-Germain.
I
I've
didn't
been
sign
to,
any treaties while I was there.
Yeah.
But
I have been to Versailles before.
as have I.
Yeah.
I drove. Do you ever do the thing that you can drive like a golf cart around in the gardens? in
Oh,
Versailles?
Oh, wow.
I
It's a really great way to see it.
I
Do you reckon Woodrow did that?
I was going to say, that's probably
Yeah.
pretty like the Paris Peace Conferences went for half a year. And if you are not a major player at the table, you've got a lot of time to kill.
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
like particularly if it's like just imagine
Yeah.
you're, I don't know, Australia for argument's sake. Actually, Billy Hughes punched above his weight. Let's go for New Zealand. And let's just say it's like, okay, on the agenda today, talking about the division of the Adriatic Sea between Yugoslavia and Italy. Okay, that's obviously not for me that day. What am I going to do to kill the time? Go play some golf. Like,
Yeah, there's the golf course where they played the Olympics, which I stopped by at, not too far from Versailles. So
Okay.
yeah, they probably ducked across.
was on a bicycle getting round.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. Lovely.
In touch.
yeah. I did not. My main memory of Paris is getting freshly squeezed OJ and having our friend throw up under the Arc de Triomphe. So
Yeah, in front
I
of the
like how
influencer. It was
OJ is the one.
Jake
just
was,
like
Jake
from
was big
the-
into the OJ hunt as well. Like on this most recent Europe trip.
it was great OJ from us. It was just
Was that just from the
it's
supermarket?
probably, yeah, like the,
Yeah,
the,
okay,
the
so
corner,
it's
the
not
corner
even
shop supermarket equivalent. PY was really like, I don't know, we were... our friend Sean had gone home sick earlier on in the day, and we were like, okay, let's just have a quiet one in, watch The Office. And so we stopped by the supermarket on the way. I think you might have gone home at that point as well to check in on Sean. And was it just PY and I at the supermarket? I can't quite
Yeah, I
remember.
remember going to the
We were
supermarket.
picking up frozen meals to come home. And then PY was like, well, while we're here, we've got to get freshly squeezed OJ. I'm like, I don't really get the link here, but sure, let's go along with it. And then I was converted. I'm like, yes.
Yeah, nothing changed. He picked up right where he left off when we landed back there.
I forgot about my sort of encouragement towards getting OJ in that instance. So that's
You were very persuasive. I was like,
it was good.
Hey, we've done a long day of like, cycling around and me being the obnoxious
Yeah.
tourist that cut off cars and whatnot. So
That was,
I remember I got like a microwave meal of poulet and roast pommes, which was the finest of French cuisine, I think. But yeah, that was good. Good OJ. I got some freshly squeezed OJ from a supermarket before watching Jess Fox win a gold medal this time.
Wow.
So that was a good moment.
man,
do you think Woodrow had any freshly squeezed OJ when...
well, he couldn't have had processed OJ. Surely that's his only option.
It's true.
I mean, yeah, the hotel facilities were pretty phenomenal. So
Probably OJ there.
and needs a taste of home. So
Yeah. Did they sign the treaty in the Hall of Mirrors as well?
I believe so. I don't,
Significant.
weirdly, in preparing this podcast, that is not where it was signed.
In what room?
A detail I actually
just
overlooked.
like conference room B.
So, 1917, April of 1917, the US declare war on Germany. And it's pretty OP because by the end of 1917, they're sending over 10,000 soldiers a day. That means to make profit or to kind of break even in the war, so to speak, you have to kill 10,000 soldiers a day. That's a lot.
Yeah, yeah. That's more than I've killed.
That's even
In a week.
even on Call of Duty, like so obviously that's pretty strong. The key statistic is that American shipping is so strong that for every for every Allied ship that was sunk by Germany, America had rebuilt 2. So again, imagine how disheartening it is for Germany that are trying to fight off this British naval blockade on them, and every time they sink a ship, America's produced 2 more.
One step forward.
Cut off one head.
2 steps. Yeah.
2 more will
Arrive.
resurface.
3 million
2
US
more will
soldiers
take its place.
join the war effort. 3 million, that is.
3 million.
US soldiers join the war effort.
Wow. Yeah, okay.
So
They were raring to go.
it's game over. 1918, we have the Treaty of Brest-Litovsk, so the Soviet Union pull out of the war. So we go back to March of 1917, Tsar Nicholas steps down. November of 1917, the Bolsheviks come to power. March of 1918, they officially withdraw from the war. And Germany's pretty punitive towards the Soviet Union. That actually is used as justification to do it to them when we reach the Paris Peace Conferences.
Should we mention Rasputin?
Well, I recently taught my class about Rasputin.
Okay.
And we did it by following the song lyrics. And you can actually, the song lyrics sufficiently tell the story of
Lover
Rasputin.
of the Russian Queen.
Yes.
Did he have is it a cat that really was dead? Is that what the song says?
Ra, ra,
I only know the chorus.
Rasputin, lover of the Russian Queen. There was a shame how he carried on.
No, there's a line in the first.
Yeah,
there's like the first iteration.
There was a cat that...
Yes.
I think maybe we
thought
should
I was
talk
going
about
crazy for a
Rasputin. Look, Rasputin is used as a scapegoat. Like, if we go back to Russia pulling out of World War One, Rasputin is used as a scapegoat to... So Tsar Nicholas's son, hemophiliac. Rasputin is from a weird cult in Siberia that basically teaches God is most glorified when you sin the most. So therefore you should sin the most. We engage in all sorts of like
I could see the logic there.
orgies and that sort of thing.
There's a passage about that.
Shall we go on?
Yeah.
Well, yeah,
By
literally,
some means.
That's literally the argument that Paul makes in Romans,
it,
right?
yeah.
So,
Yeah. Well, he argues against that.
sorry,
to
yes,
clarify.
yes. So it's not a new idea. Nothing
Is
new
Paul
under the
being
sun.
facetious?
Yeah.
Quite a bit more. Anyway,
Sorry,
so
before we do continue on, it was Lover of the Russian Queen. There was a cat that really was gone. You didn't elaborate on that with your
we
class.
didn't get that there.
Yeah.
So,
Did you not do the whole song? Or like,
with the Just Dance.
yeah.
Anyway, so Rasputin comes in,
Yeah.
heals the son by either luck or whatever.
No longer hemophiliac
Yeah.
after encountering.
Still
with-
hemophiliac, but didn't die.
Oh,
So
yeah.
that meant that, transition to the throne wasn't as complex as what it would have been had the son died. So he becomes really close in the Russian royal family, and then he's kind of blamed as the scapegoat for why everything's going wrong in the wars, that he's really pulling the strings behind everything that's going on. Anyway, Russia's well out of the war now. And in terms of 1918, basically there's the Ludendorff offensive made by Germany. That doesn't succeed. There's a potential argument to be made that Germany...
He's the guy in Wonder Woman, Ludendorff.
Oh, really?
Yeah, yeah. He's the bad guy, but then there's another bad guy behind him. That's
really-
actually
Marvel and DC are really running out of original
Yeah.
ideas.
the Ludendorff is he has been manipulated by the god of war, whose name escapes me right now.
Well, here's how silly I was. When Captain America came out and he's like, "Hail Hydra," I'm like,
Oh,
do you reckon that's a reference to the Nazis? I thought I discovered something.
Oh, I see the vision, Cam.
who'd you say that to?
I don't know. Something about you.
Just whoever will listen.
Watching it by himself.
Not, what's the one? Winter Soldier? The one...
Winter Soldier's
Is that the one with Bucky?
Yeah, they're both with Bucky, but the World War II one is First Avenger.
Oh, First
Captain
Avenger.
America.
I just remember...
It's a good movie.
Yeah. being like,
Yeah.
really thinking I made a profound point there.
Yeah.
Anyway.
you were really on it. Yeah.
There's an argument to be made that the Ludendorff offensive failed because Germany spent too long plundering Russia rather than transporting soldiers across quicker to get to the Western Front. Perhaps a weak argument, but that there is an argument that can be made for it. Realistically, why did the Allies win? Because of the naval blockade, because of America at the back end of World War One. So it's pretty grim for the Germans, and they surrender in November of 1918, November the 11th, and that same day Gough Whitlam got fired.
Armistice Day.
Yeah. And then in the beginning of 1919, the Allies head on over to Paris to begin negotiations. Our representative was a guy called Billy Hughes. Now,
Of course.
Go Billy.
go Billy. And we have what we call the Big Three, sometimes called the Big Four, but usually the Big Three. So it's kind of like a bit of an Andy Murray situation where they're
that's-
like...
I was thinking what sporting context is that found in? It's tennis.
So Italy would be the equivalent of Andy Murray.
Okay.
In this analogy.
Yeah. Okay.
So, Roger. Who would be Roger?
Switzerland. Roger, he's good guy. I feel like
Classy.
he's
Who's the classy good guy? Who are you going to put class as the classy good guy?
It sort of
would it
feels
be
like it's going to
Britain?
be it's going to be America, right?
is it America?
They
So you-
sort of sweep in and put the polish on a war that was
Yeah.
kind of gritted out by the
Yeah.
British common man.
You could probably make arguments for all of them being anyone.
That's
Who's-
when...
But Novak's definitely Germany, isn't he? Like it's
Well, Germany's not
Well,
one of the big three.
oh my bad. I like Novak. I do.
So,
Oh, okay. Who are the big three? You've told us this before.
well, actually, I think I have, but America, Britain, France.
Okay, France are there.
Who's your Drake? Who's your Kendrick? And who's your J Cole? That's the big three I'm interested in. But I don't know if you know enough about.
Is Drake Canada? I don't know.
Yeah.
So basically, let's work with Woodrow Wilson being Roger Federer in this analogy. So Woodrow Wilson comes in and goes, we want peace with no victory, meaning let's not humiliate Germany here. And
Classy.
Yeah.
what's the priority? It's not reparations or anything like that.
It's getting the world back on its feet.
It's the League of Nations.
Yeah, exactly.
Everyone's talking about reparations. No one's talking about League of Nations.
Okay.
No, it's all about restoration. That's what he wants.
So clip that bit up. That's fine. That definitely won't get us paid out if we clip that up.
It's going straight to YouTube Shorts, that one.
Okay. So who would you cast as Novak then?
I feel like Novak is the most polarizing of the big three.
Who would you have as the most polarizing? There's only two options left.
Probably the French.
Okay, I
I
like
feel
that.
the French probably want the harshest penalties, right?
Correct.
Because they've been they were the closest
the worst
to it.
hit, right?
Yeah.
Because they never really got to England.
They
right?
did they? Oh, they surrendered in World War II. Yeah.
So war was fought on French land. So the French want harsh reparations given
Yeah.
towards them, but they also want territorial gains, and they want.
Of course.
Now there's
that place that is in France that has a German name.
the Rhineland, Alsace-Lorraine, the
Yeah.
Ruhr region.
Yeah.
So when it comes to France, there's this common conception that France just wanted revenge. In defense of France, and it's very rare that I ever defend the French on the pod.
Yeah, notorious French xenophobe.
I was going for Argentina in the World Cup final, so I'm well and truly tied to one side of it now. But basically, when we go back in time, 1871, we've got the Franco-Prussian War. And what's really important is that Germany effectively becomes a unified nation at the expense of France. So we have Napoleon's nephew, Napoleon III, and he takes on Otto von Bismarck. And basically, Germany unifies in this war against France. They become kind of scattered kingdoms that unify together to beat the French. And then at that point, they become Imperial Germany. And from that point onwards, they go from being these really not irrelevant kingdoms, but not too powerful kingdoms in Europe, to now being a kingdom that is powerful enough that it can fight a two-front war for 4 years against pretty much everyone else in the world.
Yeah.
France is worried about a strong Germany. They're like, we need to make sure that they can never do this again.
It's
Easy to joke in hindsight.
yeah, it's tough.
And so the French, their big thing is that they want territorial gains. And they not only do they want German territory given to the French.
They want the Rhineland.
Demilitarized.
Yeah.
So they want so the German soldiers can't be in the Rhineland that divides Germany and France.
Does that also have some industrial
Ruhr-
sort of benefits? That's the
The Ruhr region is the
region.
industrial area.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's coming back to me.
And then on the east, they want the east carved up completely. And you looking at the development of Czechoslovakia, looking at the development of Poland and so forth. Which leaves Rafael Nadal to be the British.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
Lloyd George, not to be confused with Boy George as we discovered last time, is leading the British delegation. He does bring a pretty high profile guest called John Milton Keynes, the famous economist. So they, if I'm not mistaken, I think their delegation has around about 100. So you can imagine the different countries rocking up on the River Seine, kind of with the opening ceremony.
Yeah.
And then Britain walks in like, boys, what's up
Yeah,
here?
yeah.
Real jock energy about the...
I don't know. I feel like Rafa is no one's goat, whereas Roger is your
He's
goat.
my dad's goat.
Why?
He read an autobiography about him.
Oh, okay. But it's like Roger's...
Tonight.
Everyone likes Roger. Novak's got the most.
Nadal
But
is very superstitious.
Nadal also won like 14 of his Grand Slams or something ridiculous, all in Paris.
Now we're
The king of clay.
So speaking
So,
of,
I
Lloyd
don't know.
George,
Good player.
Lloyd George rocks up in Britain, and his iconic quote is that he's like, "I didn't do too bad at Paris." Like, oh, why'd you say that? He's like, "Well, I was standing between Napoleon and Jesus Christ himself."
What?
Interesting.
Who's Napoleon in this one? It's George Clemenceau, the president of France.
Oh,
Who's
yeah.
Jesus Christ? It's Woodrow Wilson, who wants to come in and be really idealistic
Yeah.
and really moral about things.
Yeah.
Basically, Europe's attitude towards Woodrow Wilson is you don't get how European politics works. You actually think that this is about right and wrong, at least here arguing in independence versus tyranny and whatnot. This has always been about we're more powerful, we will subdue you, but we'll try and treat you well enough so that you won't rebel against us. And if you successfully rebel against us, that's on us because we didn't treat you properly, so we'll go back to the drawing board for next time. That's what European politics is. We've been fighting this amongst ourselves for a couple hundred years now. This is how it works. Stop coming in saying, these people deserve their independence. That's just silly. That's dumb. And so there was this real attitude that Woodrow Wilson was this idealistic American that didn't get how European politics worked and just came in and tried to import his own system into a continent that had dealt through this a number of times in their recent history.
Okay.
The big issue of contention was Article 231.
Article 231, of course. Don't remember what that is. My mind's thinking about how... Did you guys see that Kokkinakis beat Tsitsipas?
I did actually.
Jake, focus.
I'm sorry. We're just talking about tennis. I wanted to mention that. It's a good performance. See how he goes.
231. Is that about the size of the German army?
Very good guess. It's an admission of guilt.
Ah.
Woodrow Wilson does
Yeah.
not want Article 231 to be in. He's like, you guys, like, this was over an archduke initially getting shot. There's no one singular party, but you're all to blame here. Let's not go silly and let's not unnecessarily antagonize a whole nation.
Okay. It feels very Suits in a way, in that it's, it comes to the settlement. Oh, fine, we'll pay your money, and you're going to admit that you're guilty too. It's like it always gets to that stage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're going to sign your
That's the kicker. That's the kicker.
And yeah,
Or,
and that is.
or
and that's-
is it a closed case?
And well, that's one of Hitler's great rallying cries. He's like, this kind of gave legs to the stabbed in the back myth that Jews sold out the Germans because Hitler goes and argues that Article 231 is just a sham when you look at how the war actually broke out. I remember when I was back at uni, I listened to a BBC podcast, and person gets up and they're talking about the world wars and what happened in between. And this German woman goes, and obviously Germany wasn't actually responsible for the outbreak of World War II. And they go, do you mean World War One? And she goes, no, World War II. And they're like, no, I'm pretty sure you mean World War One. She's like, no, definitely not World War One, but even World War II too. And they're like, oh, it's pretty hard to argue.
Yeah, but the argument's because of the treaty, right? And what that led to Germany being post that.
the way it crippled
Yeah.
them.
The common saying is what caused World War II, World War One.
Yeah.
I'd probably be more sympathetic to the Great Depression. And certainly World War One exacerbated the impacts of the Great Depression in Europe in a way that it didn't in America, particularly when you think about reparations and whatnot. But yeah, so that's kind of the big thing that's in question for Germany. We can go a bit choose our own adventure here. We're going to look at a couple of the different conferences that were being held.
Oh boy.
Where do you want to go? Do you want to
Sounds fun.
go to Germany? Do you want to go to the Middle East? Do you want to go to miscellaneous?
Well, miscellaneous is.
I wonder if I want my candy now, but at the should we save miscellaneous till the end?
I don't know. Some reason I've got the city Potsdam in my head. Why? What significance does that
Post
have?
World War II conference.
My bad.
Good effort though.
Thanks, mate.
Yeah,
Thanks.
Take me to the Middle East.
Okay, Middle East. So, who was the enemy in World War One that's in the Middle East?
Turkey?
Yeah, otherwise known as the...
Turkey, yeah. If you're in the Euros.
Turkey.
Sorry for not calling it that.
No, don't apologise to me. That's for sure.
No, it's kind of. I was really struggling with the different pronunciation during the Euros. It has a different name that I can't remember. Istanbul is called
Constantinople.
Make Constantinople...
Constantinople.
Sorry, make Istanbul Constantinople again. It was known as the...
Start with B.
No,
The Ottoman Empire.
Yeah.
Did you say that?
Yeah.
Because I think of it when I put my feet up on an Ottoman.
You feel like you run an empire when you're
It's
doing
like,
that.
does that name come from the Ottoman Empire? Like,
Yeah, what came first?
or was it a
I assume...
Did they invent the footrest?
Or no, maybe it was like someone who then conquered the Ottomans. Like who then...
allies in World War One, and then the Turks
So
from within.
did they then make this piece of furniture to symbolize, making them my footstool,
Yeah.
if you will?
Let's go with that.
That's
Let's
good.
go with
Yeah.
that. There's an essay there.
Get me into the Ottoman marketing team.
So,
That's probably not it.
the Ottoman Empire, we might have just offended a huge...
Oh yeah.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it probably originated in the area.
I did get my first
Yeah.
green slip of throwing Mandarin at a Turkish friend of mine, and I did make a reference to World War One in that moment, which also got me in hot water, which I won't elaborate on because I don't want to get cancelled
You
today.
said that.
That was on the Patreon. I was very careful to word that on the Patreon, not the main pod.
So make sure to pay some
money. I remember what you did.
pay some money to us if you want to hear what Cam had to say.
It could have
But
been
anyway,
worse.
We move.
It's
Yeah.
It's
We're talking about a much more severe thing.
yeah.
At the moment, I think you're okay.
So
But the Turkish friend did not deserve that.
he's doing very well for himself.
Friend.
Now. He's a
Good
very
for him.
successful pilot. So gets to a lot of Fenerbahce games, but then lives in Australia half the time. Crazy.
Good
What a
hairline?
life, What a life.
Yeah, great hairline.
Yeah.
Given.
Heading to Istanbul a lot,
Yeah.
Doesn't surprise me.
So anyway, the Ottomans were, I guess, the first target of Australia. Well, technically it was the Germans in New Guinea, but the first well-known target of Australia during World War One, which is the Gallipoli campaign in 1915. We've done primary school history. We've done United history. I'm not going to labour that point. The Ottoman campaign that was probably of more significance was at the end of the war, was basically this campaign that went from 1917 to 1918, which was not necessarily in the Dardanelles, which is the dividing line between European and Asian Turkey. It's going much further south into Middle Eastern, the Middle Eastern Arabia, which was controlled by the Ottomans at the time. Basically, the Ottomans held a number of key cities, such as Gaza, such as Jerusalem, such as Damascus, and the British were trying to take those off of the Ottomans and kind of defeat their empire from the belly beneath. Mm-hmm. Have you seen the movie Lawrence of Arabia?
No,
I haven't seen it. I've heard of it. Yeah.
I haven't. It
Do you
actually,
think there are that many Lawrences in the Arabian nation?
well, that's the plot of the movie.
Is it? Okay, yeah, sorry.
I haven't seen the movie, so I'm assuming that's the plot of the movie. The guy called Tom Lawrence,
Yeah.
and British soldier who is involved in the Ottoman campaign. What Lawrence is well known for is that he actually goes and recruits a lot of the Arabs to rebel against the Ottomans. And technically, the Arabs are Ottoman citizens. And he goes, no, you shouldn't be run by Turks. You should be independent. Arabia should be for Arabs, not for Turks.
I feel like Tom Lawrence was a good career mode player
He
back
was.
in the day.
Derby
Was he-
County?
Yeah. Man United?
Oh, maybe at one point,
I
yeah.
think he played in that game that Ryan Giggs was in charge of.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Yeah, I know the one where James Wilson
James
scored
Wilson.
a couple of
I
goals.
think Tom Lawrence also played in that game.
Oh, wow.
There you go.
Real history.
Yeah.
So Lawrence of Arabia basically went round and recruited a whole bunch of Arabs to go and attack the Ottomans. He recruits, or he kind of enters negotiation with someone called Hussein bin Ali. He is the leader of a part of Arabia called the Hejaz. And that's kind of his part that he's a leader of. He's really important as well because he is a Hashemite, which means he is, at least according to best available family lineages, he is a descendant of Muhammad the Prophet.
Wow.
So the leader of the Ottoman Empire, the Sultan, was considered the Caliph, which is the global political Islamic leader. Right now it's some Pakistani dude that I don't know the name of.
I'm familiar with the role of the Sultan. I too was a Sultan once.
Oh, of course. How did it take this long to not talk about Ben's? You got to pay to hear that chat.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, brief foray into political leadership.
Yes.
The Sultan in the Year 6 musical rendition of Aladdin. My public school.
Yeah.
Where PY was the understudy and it was looking very likely that PY would get to be Aladdin until the main character pulled through at the end, as the main character always does.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, that's a good one. That's good.
so he recruits these. He basically recruits a whole bunch of Arabia to then go and to attack the Ottomans. Now, how impactful they were in the war is a question that probably can't really be answered. I'd still argue that Australia was more significant in a lot of those attacks. So probably Australia was most well known for the Battle of Beersheba, as in the biblical city Beersheba. That was essential for then going on and taking Jerusalem by the end of 1917. Beersheba's a well-known one because we've got the Light Horse Brigade that kind of charge in, and you've got these soldiers with bayonets on the Light Horse Brigade kind of slashing in these like dirt trenches that aren't the same as the muddy trenches of the Western Front. But what Britain successfully does is they do get Hussein bin Ali to then take up arms against the Ottoman Empire. And that creates a whole bunch of issues for the Ottoman Empire because not only are they trying to fight a war, but now they have to try and stop their own people from rebelling and their own citizens from rebelling. So, the promise that was made to Hussein bin Ali was that there would be an independent Arabic nation. And that nation would be as far northwest as Syria and as far southeast as Yemen. And I don't know if you know your Middle Eastern geography that well. That's pretty much the entirety of the Arab countries that exist today.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So encompassing Iraq.
Yes.
Iran.
Not Iran.
Well,
That's Persia. Yeah.
should have stopped
Got
at
off to a
Iraq.
hot start.
Yeah. Just.
Iraq, Syria, Palestine, which was what it was called at that time. Jordan was just fell under that remit of in the Mesopotamia, Palestine area. And Saudi Arabia, Yemen, so forth.
Yeah.
So, a little bit awkward. So, 1917, we have a whole number of Jews that are living in Europe. And obviously it hasn't gotten as bad as the Holocaust, but the Jews are a persecuted minority in Europe. And a number of Jews have started the Zionist movement, which was them moving back. Firstly, the Zionist movement started with the theory that Jewish people should have their own separate Jewish state. And in order for them to kind of make sure they aren't a persecuted minority group, they need their own country. Where do you kind of set up that country? Well, everywhere in the world's taken. But I guess, I'm not necessarily giving weight to this argument, but you could make an argument that historically they have ties to the land of Palestine, lived there for thousands of years, and were persecuted by Emperor Vespasian. That's going back to 70 AD. Long time since they've been in that land when the emperor expelled them. But what they do is they start rocking up and basically just start living lives and creating life in modern day Palestine.
Like in hostility or kind of like...
Yes.
Yeah.
So the argument was that they won't be hostile, that they'll come, they'll leave the Arabs alone, but they'll bring economic stimulus, they'll bring skills, and they'll bring particularly a lot of white-collar skills that Palestine at that point didn't have. The Arabs didn't necessarily greet them too warmly. They're like, hey, what are you doing? Just coming and setting up a society in our land. This land is taken. This is our land. And so it gets really awkward in that respect. Obviously, for Hussein bin Ali, he is going to side with the Arabs rather than the Jews on that front. And so what is really awkward is that there's a foreign minister called Arthur. Unfortunately,
Okay.
not Arthur Zimmerman.
Yeah.
Arthur Balfour. He is the foreign minister of Britain. And he signed something called the Balfour Declaration, which is this vague statement that more or less says, if you want to, and if you're a Jew in Britain, if you want to, you can move and migrate to Palestine, and we'll basically make sure that you're sorted out. This is a little bit awkward because that goes against the agreement made to Hussein bin Ali, that you can have all of Arabia.
An agreement also made by the British?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
So, yeah, Lawrence of Arabia, British guy. So this is awkward. What is also
A lot of awkwardness going around.
What is also awkward is that there was a deal made with the French called the Sykes-Picot Agreement. And
The what?
this Sykes-Picot. Spelled P-I-D-O-T.
Pedo. We were just watching that In-Betweeners episode last night.
It's P-I-D-O.
Pedo.
Yeah, P-I-D-O-T. French. So, basically, 1916, an agreement is signed between the British and the French where they divide up the Middle East between themselves. So Britain's gone and they've made this deal with Hussein bin Ali about giving them their own Arab state. They've also done this deal with the French where they go, okay, you get Syria, you get Lebanon, we get Iraq, we'll leave Arabia to themselves, and together we'll run Palestine as a joint set. The way that they divided it, you can look at the map. The map's pretty ridiculous. It's as though you're in year 5, you take out your 30 centimeter ruler,
Is it bendy?
do some laser beams by having night vision.
Just like,
Yes.
like, guys, focus, and you just hear someone with the table on the, just whoop, 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 whoop.
The lava lamp ones.
Oh yes,
Fuji. They'd
yeah.
always leak.
yeah, they would. So after the French and the British kind of do that for a fair bit of time, they do get the rulers out, and they're like, okay, let's just draw a straight line across the Middle East, and
Really, just yeah.
it's
dead
at an
straight.
angle. It's like a 3-degree angle,
Okay.
but the line is straight, and you're like,
Yeah,
oh,
nice.
Yeah.
ethnic groups in and around there. Like you've got Kurds and Arabs, and whatnot. That's a very awkward
Yeah.
to just draw a line straight through the middle. But hey, it's just easy to do. Then they went back to like, oh, is your 2 centimeter margin, 1 centimeter margin? Have you done your title page yet?
Oh my gosh.
So the people of the Middle East have an understanding that their borders are going to be all encompassing
They think they're going to get their own Arab state
Arab state. Yeah.
if you're an Arabic person living in the Middle East.
But the European countries then have they are deciding that actually we're going to split it up so that we have access to different.
Yeah, and we'll still
Parts.
allow an Arab state, but they just get really south of Arabia. And, like we'll take the northern parts like Syria, like Iraq, like
Yeah.
Palestine, and then
Yeah.
they get really far south, Arabia.
Yeah.
And
And
so-
is it dependent on the results of the war?
Oh, obviously, yeah, if you win.
Oh,
If
this
they-
is post-war, of course.
pre-war.
Okay.
Sorry,
Post-
pre-victory of war, during the war.
Yeah. So, if the war goes one way, Middle East is split up a different way.
Yeah, so this is us. When we beat the Ottoman
Of course.
Empire, this
Yeah.
is how we'll split the winnings between us. And
Yeah.
the third layer, remember, is you've got the Jewish issue where,
Of course.
you've got the Balfour Declaration, and you've got these Jews that are just setting up now in Palestine. So it's all getting very awkward. In fact, what is really interesting is when ISIS were at their kind of zenith of power, one of their big points was that we will reverse the lines that were drawn in the Sykes-Picot Agreement. So it's pretty like, there's just some, again, it's crazy. Guys getting 30 centimeter, I don't know if it actually were 30 centimeter rulers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In 1916 has basically contributed to massive geopolitical tensions that still exist today.
That is pretty crazy. Yeah. I've never ruled a
yeah.
line that consequential.
Well, you don't know yet. You might have.
And
Yeah.
I once, you know how sometimes like you get a bit lazy with your margin and you just use the width of the ruler to measure out them rather than the
Yeah.
2 centimeter sort of government regulated kind of margins.
I never did that.
Yeah, that
Yeah,
was
wow.
consequential. I felt
Yeah.
the wrath after that one.
Yeah. I feel like we spoke a little bit about this when we did an episode on the Arab Spring, maybe.
Yeah, we
but
did.
yeah, it's baffling.
And I think in our Saddam Hussein episode as well.
yeah. What an
we also-
episode.
Yeah, we've got some kind of feedback about that one.
Yeah.
So, sorry. So, is that where Is this where a lot of like the conflict today stems from? Is it about that division of Palestine, or does it then gain additional complexity?
Division of Palestine certainly is the biggest one.
Yeah.
But then also just the borders and the lines, because you've got an ethnic group called the Kurds that we looked at in Saddam Hussein that just didn't get accounted for when these borders were drawn at all.
Yeah.
And it's just a line that goes straight in the middle of their territory. So, yeah, you've got, strong Kurdish tensions. And then with Iraq, you've also got the Sunni Shia divide, where that wasn't given any consideration at all.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it was perhaps a little recklessly done. Anyway, we get after the war, and so, surely enough, Hussein bin Ali is like, great, awesome, we did it, we beat the Ottomans. Time for the Arab state, right? And they're like, oh, soon. We'll give you some money just to kind of keep your area going. Like, just take care of the Hejaz for now and kind of southern Arabia. We've still got some business we need to sort out in northern Arabia. Like, okay, cool.
Yeah, trust the process, bro.
Trust the process. Treaty of Sèvres gets signed in 1920. At this point, the Ottoman Empire is split in half. So half is run by the Sultan, and then half,
Unfamiliar.
so that's in Constantinople or Istanbul, and then the other half is run in Ankara by Mustafa Kemal Ataturk. Guess which one wins? It's in the name.
Ataturk.
Yeah.
Because he gets Turkey.
Boom, there we go. So, but at that point, Treaty of Sèvres is signed with the Sultan. That's the important thing to remember about this, the losing party.
I recall it. I remember it like it was yesterday, signing the treaty.
Oh, yeah, yes. And it would take, so eventually Ataturk wins, and in 1923 they sign a revised treaty called Lausanne, which basically Ataturk was like, yeah, we don't
in
care.
Switzerland.
Yeah.
Lucerne. So it is the Swiss place, is it?
Yeah, because Switzerland was actually supposed to host the Paris Peace Conferences, but Wilson was really anxious that the French, if he wanted to try and persuade the French out of being so harsh, maybe that was an easy bone he could throw them, was by having it be in Paris. So anyway, this treaty gets signed in 1923 with Ataturk, and Ataturk goes, yeah, we don't want the Middle East. I want Turkey. I'm a Turkish nationalist. And so then they have to decide, okay, who gets what in the Middle East? Britain gets Mesopotamia, otherwise known as Iraq, and they get Palestine. So they've already, this isn't under joint control. Britain has taken Palestine for themselves, and the French get Syria and Lebanon. Obviously, for our friend Hussein bin Ali, he's like, what the heck? You guys promised this to me. Where's this kind of Arabic nation that you had promised? Britain goes, oh yeah, about that. And what is also quite interesting is there is another king that's in Arabia that is starting to become more powerful. He is King Saud.
Okay.
Probably see where this is going, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I do.
Oh, yeah.
I've got my thinking cap on right now. Do you see where it's going?
Where's it going?
So, King Saud attacks Hussein bin Ali and basically wants to expand his territory in southern Arabia.
Yep.
Britain support this attack on Hussein bin Ali because King Saud had made an agreement with them not to advance any further west and threaten their Suez Canal over in Egypt. And so they're like, great, now we could just deal with the Hussein bin Ali problem. We made this promise to him. Let's just get rid of him and have this other guy come in that we don't know anything to. He can run Arabia. And in 1932, it becomes Saudi Arabia. And Hussein bin Ali kind of gets played completely there.
Yeah, tough.
Yeah, very tough one for him.
So does he get killed in that? Or is he just kind of
doesn't get killed.
flushed out?
Yeah, flushed out. Has a son called Faisal. His kids bounce around between Syria and Lebanon, but they never get that Arabic kingdom under him that they were so hoping for. When the Ottoman Empire falls, he also asks to be called the Caliph and kind of gets that title given to him, so the global leader of political Islam, but that only lasts for about 6 months. And I think at that point was the world's shortest serving Caliph ever. So very awkward in the Middle East. The Balfour Declaration led to a migration between 1919 to 1923 of about 35,000 Jews to Palestine, and after that point, all sorts of riots broke out and racial tensions developed in Palestine. Obviously, that has continued through to today. That becomes especially heated when they're not just co-citizens in Palestine, but then the nation state of Israel is created after World War II.
That's after World War II. Yep. Okay.
The plot thickens.
Yes.
Yeah, that's it.
So, Paris Peace Conferences, although the Middle East was more dealt with in 1920 rather than in 1919, still under the banner of Paris Peace Conferences, has created some issues today. But that's the Middle
Yeah.
Eastern chapter.
What's,
Okay, let's return home.
Okay.
Sorry,
Yeah,
no,
sure.
Go. No, go on.
What's going on in Syria and Damascus?
Yeah. At that time, let's say,
Is there any connection?
between Syria and Damascus.
Oh no, like what happened? Like, is there
With
is there,
ISIS?
is there stuff? Yeah, okay, that's
So ISIS, Islamic State of Iraq and Syria,
yeah,
otherwise known as ISIL, Islamic State of Iraq and the Levant.
yeah,
Basically, this is their vision of bringing a Arab Muslim nation back together under its more extremist banner of Islam. And the American invasion of Iraq kind of gave them a pretext to have a just cause to wage war against this kind of Western decadent imperialist regime that's functioned in the Middle East. And so that gave them a lot of traction in the early 2010s and moving in towards the mid 2010s. And in terms of why they rallied against the 1916 lines that were drawn, is that like, why was there a division between Iraq and Syria? It's just the French and the British carving it up amongst themselves. There's no need for that division. That's an imperialist thing. Let's bring it all back under one banner.
Of this Arabian, or of this Arab nation, is that what you're saying?
That
yeah.
is
okay, yeah,
really hardcore Sunni
yeah.
Muslim. Yeah.
So it does
Yep.
sort of stem back to World War One almost.
Yeah. Well, at least their cause rallies back. Well, they
Yeah,
would've-
yeah,
I
yeah.
firmly believe that, yeah, it would have happened in spite of that, but it
Okay.
gives them a rallying cry, certainly, to appeal to.
Yeah.
So, Middle East, pretty big consequences for some guys just drawing an S.
Just,
on the-
just doodling on the map. Yeah.
We'll return home. We've got two choices. We've got Germany or miscellaneous. Or the League of Nations. No, say the League of Nations to the end.
Okay.
We spent a long time on the Middle East.
We
Germany's
learned a
gonna-
lot though.
Okay.
Germany's
yeah,
going to be
yeah,
real
yeah.
quick.
Okay.
Yeah.
Take me to Germany. Little weekender in Germany.
Okay, very quick. Germany.
No rush, Kim.
Well, it's basically year 11 history. So,
Okay.
Article 231.
Yeah.
Admit guilt.
Guilty.
And this is not a
This
negotiation.
little rat is guilty.
And this is not a negotiation. This is a dictation.
Okay.
So,
I'm familiar with, with dictations.
Article 231. They owe $40 billion in reparations.
It's a lot.
That is a lot of money. Now, the US dollar wasn't quite as strong against the pound as what it is today, so maybe adjust for that a little bit. They have to reduce their armed forces to 100,000 soldiers. And they basically have all their territory carved up. So the French get that bit that they're after. Britain was more pushing for the angle of, hey, let's make sure we cut off their empire and divvy up their imperial territories and pay reparations, of course. We actually don't want them to lose too much territory, though, because we kind of like the fact that they are a counterweight to France. Because, yeah, sure, France were our allies this time, but maybe they won't be our allies next time, and we want the two to counter each other out.
Yeah.
Britain didn't quite get what they wanted on that front because Germany lost territory to Lithuania, lost territory to Poland, Czechoslovakia, Belgium, France. It was quite a lengthy knifing and carving up. I think the statistic is they lost about 100,000 square kilometers of territory.
Oh wow. Yeah.
Okay.
So certainly quite humiliating for the Germans. John Milton Keynes writes his kind of like treaty on this, or treaties, I should say, with
Milton
ISE.
Keynes.
And basically he says, more or less, something to the effect of, this is way too punitive and we're going to create a future crisis for ourselves by what we've done here. Prophetic.
Some good players from Milton Keynes in Benica Phobie and Dele Alli.
Yeah, I do. Yes.
Yeah.
Although if you're a loyal Wimbledon supporter,
Oh,
MK
yeah.
Don's a scum.
Just quickly, I believe his name is actually John Maynard Keynes.
That would
Yes,
probably make
that
more
is it.
sense
That is
because
definitely
Milton
it.
Keynes is
It's
a place.
John, did I say yes, John Maynard. It is definitely John Maynard Keynes.
Yeah.
Man, yes, it certainly is John Maynard Keynes.
Yeah, no, it is. The
Yeah.
internet tells me.
Thanks.
I was like, that sounds right, but I don't remember it being that close to Milton Keynes, the place in England.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, John Maynard Keynes. I think the people knew.
Yeah. Anyway, so basically,
I hope they're still here. I hope they didn't turn off the pod after they heard you say Milton Keynes.
if we
the
cut it up
first
for
time.
short, that could be dangerous because shorts attract the people that are like, you slightly mispronounced this one word. Anyway,
But our listeners, they bear with our
Okay.
So Italy, the Andy Murray figure, they technically flipped sides during the war, although they didn't really fight for the Central Powers. They did fight at the back end of the war for the Entente. And we've got Vittorio Orlando, the Prime Minister of Italy, that has come out.
Victoria Orlando.
Vittorio.
Oh, Vittoria Orlando.
Yes.
Cool name.
Okay.
I like that.
Yeah, it is pretty
And
cool.
basically he's like, great, okay. The Adriatic Sea is what I'm really worried about. That's the sea that is east of Italy. So Mediterranean west, Adriatic east,
What's it called?
Adriatic.
Yeah.
On the other side, you can find Croatia.
Yep. Oh,
Nice.
yeah. I'm with you.
Now, there's some little islands, and there's kind of the western coast of Croatia. That is called Dalmatia.
So where the dogs are from.
Is where the dogs are from.
Wow.
I believe where they originated from. That's why it's called. They're
Really?
called Dalmatians.
What a film.
And basically, he goes, "Well, Adriatic. I'm pretty concerned about that. We have the right to occupy the Adriatic, and Dalmatia should be ours." And that's kind of the demands that he's making. He also goes, "We should also take a whole bunch of Germany kind of had stakes in Central West Africa. They didn't have any country outright, but they had pockets of colonies there.
Yep.
So they said we should at least get some of those colonies, and they do end up running Abyssinia under Mussolini, which is modern day Ethiopia. And they go, we should also get Albania as well.
Okay.
I don't know if you saw in the Euros,
Yeah.
the Albanian fan breaking the spaghetti in front of the Italian fans. There's history behind that. It's
Yeah.
not
Oh,
some-
really?
some
Okay.
rogue-
Rife with tension.
That
Yes.
was just, I thought that was just
that
a
footage.
joke.
It was, but there is history.
Or was it, Jake?
Behind the joke. So those are their demands. They had a treaty called the Treaty of London, which was a secret treaty signed with Britain. Britain have to stop signing secret treaties. They're just playing themselves every time. Woodrow
That's
Wilson comes
crazy.
in and he goes, "No way, like no way can you have all of that. They are not Italian. Italy should not come in and dictate terms to these people." And so Woodrow Wilson basically goes, "No, you can't." Italy leave the Paris Peace Conferences. They
Rage quit.
they do a walkout.
Damn.
And they think, oh, Wilson will come back to the table. And basically, like, Lloyd George is a little bit like, yeah, we did sign this with them. We should probably honor some part of it. Wilson's like, no, that's illegitimate. It was done in secret. That doesn't count as a real deal. And Woodrow Wilson's like, we'll press on without them. What are they going to do? Start a war? Like, they're Italy. And so basically calls their bluff, and Italy come back to the Paris Peace Conferences at the end when they're like, oh, okay, we'll talk. And they got some little pockets of Africa, but they didn't really get what they were after. And so it was called the Mutilated Peace. That was the term that was used in Italy. And why can Mussolini come to power? Well, it's because they got screwed over at Paris. Partially. There's multiple reasons.
Interesting.
Italian democracy fails. It failed us in Paris. We need stronger leadership and better leadership.
Okay. Well, they're obviously they ally with Germany, right, in World War II.
They do.
So they were upset.
Both just disgruntled
Yeah.
by the
Yes.
events in Paris.
Again, and then the third party that's disgruntled by Paris is Japan. So we've got Japan. There's kind of two things that they're asking for. The first one is the racial equality clause,
Oh, yeah.
which we have
Yeah, we've talked about
spoken
this. Yeah.
The number one person who blocked the racial equality clause,
Is Australian?
yeah,
Yeah.
Billy Hughes. Who you can learn about. Oh, I'm just. Jeez, no. I take that back. I am not using the racial equality clause as a segue into the clause.
People monetize anything.
Carry
these
on.
days.
Yeah.
I've seen
Carry on.
just talking about Blake Lively last week and how she's using tragedy for her own self-promotion. Sorry.
You've become the very thing you sought to destroy.
I was literally picturing, like, as I started that sentence, the my apology message out.
I have made a continuous and egregious lapse in judgment.
Promote the course later. Australia are the primary people who block the racial equality clause. America to an extent. So America abstained from voting. For Woodrow Wilson, he's got segregation in the South, but he's also got...
And he's known as a bit of a racist Woodrow, isn't he?
He's a Democrat, and he
He
played...
had that movie.
Birth of a Nation by D.W. Griffith.
Hey, DW.
Hey!
What?
I can't believe we mentioned Arthur Zimmerman and D.W. Griffith, and we didn't make one Arthur joke last time.
Is
There
that
must be a
is that
link.
the inspiration
There must
from? Is that where they inspired the show from?
Yeah.
It's just,
DW
1910
is such
satire.
a random name to have in a show.
Yeah.
Weird.
A little too convenient. Anyway, we move.
Also, huge Japanese population in California. The Californians didn't like the Japanese population.
Yeah.
And so Wilson was...
Was that because of the gold rush?
It was because of the gold rush.
Yeah.
And so Wilson was not keen to have the racial equality clause passed. We then come on to a port called Shantung, or Shandong, depending on what part of China you're from.
Part of China or Japan?
China.
Okay.
Now-
So China's got involved, have they?
They have. So
Okay.
basically, because they didn't give the racial equality clause to Japan, they need to give them something because they basically have walked away with egg on their face a little bit there. And you really don't want to push this growing, powerful naval country into the hands of any other disgruntled people. So they kind of try and throw Japan a bone. Japan and China were divided by the East China Sea. Where it became a little bit nebulous was in the early 1890s, Japan took Korea off of China in the first Sino-Japanese War. So now the East China Sea is no longer the division between China and Japan. You got to draw the line somewhere else because Korea is attached to China. So Japan, during World War I, they went and took Shantung off of the Germans who were holding that. It was a German-run port. So a little port in China that was run by the Germans. The Japanese took it off them and said, we should keep it after the war. China goes, no, it's ours. It's Chinese land. What are you doing? So at the Paris Peace Conferences, they grant this port to Japan. China is very annoyed at this because it's Chinese territory and Japan's got this port. And so China storm out of the Paris Peace Conferences and there's an uprising back at home called the May the 4th movement. Sorry, the May 4th movement.
Okay.
Is it to do with May the
Star
4th?
Wars.
To do with Star Wars?
It did happen on May the 4th.
Okay. Yeah.
Unfortunately, we are not the first to make that observation. That this is
Absolute riveting insight from the pod here.
basically a bunch of Chinese students were up in arms that China was so weak on this issue at the Paris Peace Conferences and said this is ridiculous. China, it was kind of a Chinese nationalist movement. The Communist Party kind of glorifies this event today as this moment where China stood up for itself and showed strong Chinese patriotism when the imperialist world was not being kind to them. We then have some other treaties. So we got separate treaties to deal with Hungary, separate treaties to deal with Austria, separate treaties to deal with Bulgaria. And basically the main takeaway from those is that Austria and Hungary can't reunify.
Okay.
Now, this whole time, Woodrow Wilson is wanting to get when he's thinking about what his main concerns are, his main concern is getting the League of Nations passed back at home. This was his number one peace point that he cared about. George Clemenceau has a great quote. He said, Woodrow Wilson has 14 peace points. That's crazy. God Almighty only has 10. Basically, this is so convoluted, over the top. Get your message down to be a little bit simpler.
Okay.
Streamline.
Concise.
Yes. So he's really worried about the League of Nations. That's his baby. And at every kind of meeting, whenever they're talking about any other issues, Woodrow Wilson always brings it back to the League of Nations, though. So any other business time was packed with Woodrow Wilson going on his hobby horse. But that needed to get through the Senate to become law in America. So if America was going to join, it needed to get through both the lower house and the Senate. Now, he is pretty cautious in Paris because he knows that he can't alienate his own country. If he wants the League of Nations to go through, he's got to oppose things like the Racial Equality Clause so that his country can pass it back at home and he doesn't get much opposition to it. Now, there were two groups. One group was called the Irreconcilables.
Oh, geez, really sort of putting the foot down early there. Really kind of not giving any hope of reconciling.
Yes.
Yeah, right. Okay.
So in 1918, the Republicans won the Senate.
Yeah.
Wilson still in as a Democrat. The Republican senators that were never going to go for the League of Nations were called the Irreconcilables.
Okay.
However, there were other Republican senators who would go for them. And so basically...
The open to reconciliation is...
Yeah, it's called the revisionist, not revisionist, something along that line. And those Republicans were open to conversations with Woodrow Wilson. Their biggest thing was the League of Nations seems to function on the premise of collective security, i.e., if the way that we ensure countries are safe is if one country gets attacked, we all attack that other country. You fight with one of us, you fight with all of us.
Yeah.
That's pretty extreme. We're going to end up in a lot of European wars. Look at Europe over the last 100 years at that point, the 1800s to them. lot of wars have happened in Europe. We are going to be end up fighting like Turkey versus Greece a lot. Like that, there's a lot of trips to Mykonos could be on the cards.
Do you
here.
think this measure though would surely
de-escalate?
De-escalate
That was
tensions.
that was Woodrow Wilson's. That was
Yeah.
mutually assured destruction. That was Woodrow Wilson's argument that this would be a
Yeah.
strong enough deterrent that no one would step out of line. Like, still, that's a big risk to take.
Okay.
Can you just amend the wording that for America, we don't have to do the collective security thing? It's like, that kind of undermines the whole process. And if I'm the one leading this, that looks a little bit poor. And so they're like, okay, at least this is in 1918. At least take us to Paris. Take me with you.
Take me to Paris.
Wilson goes, no. He's like, stuff you. I'm like, you're going to jeopardize all these conversations, all these talks. I can't have you potentially blowing up about this. And so he doesn't take them. And so the Republicans are furious now. It's like, well, this was your one shot.
I have missed out on a trip to Paris. So fair enough.
6 months paid for. But, and they're like, you've wasted your chance here. This was your chance to get this through the Senate. And yeah, they're really angry. There's a guy called Henry Lodge. So he's the Republican leader in the Senate. And basically he makes this mission to try and vote down this legislation. Henry Lodge actually fancies himself as a foreign policy genius. Woodrow Wilson fancies himself as a foreign policy genius. It's like Kevin Rudd v. Penny Wong sort of thing going on here.
Yeah, well.
And
Where
so
have they developed these skills, right?
Yeah, true. I just want to get into foreign
They-
foreign
like
policy.
Princeton, he's got a lot of time to kill at
Are they
Princeton.
reading, I guess.
What's that again? And so Wilson successfully gets the league passed through Paris, and he comes home in October. He's like, well, he comes home a little bit earlier, but in October he's like, great, we are going to have this passed through America. And the Republicans go, no, this isn't getting through the Senate. It's like, oh yeah, good joke. Well, it's already through. Like, no, we are not passing this. It's like, what? They're like, we're not doing it. And so Wilson got two choices. He can try and change the senators' minds, or he can try and change the public's mind. And he goes for the public.
Yeah, fair play.
So he goes on a rally, and while he's on at one of these rallies, he gets one of his first major strokes. He becomes partially paralyzed. It's not as bad as the one in 1920 that completely paralyzes the left side of his body, but that's his first major one that happens. His health isn't great. He got the Spanish flu in Paris at the peace conferences, so that kind of knocked him around a bit. But yeah, Woodrow Wilson gets a stroke. He's never the same after that. And that actually takes away a lot of his mobility. So the League of Nations quite literally kills him in some way, shape or form. The Republicans go, why did you talk to the public? You could have talked to us and could have spoken to us. Wilson's like, not really. And on November the 19th, 1919, on November the 18th, I get my dates mixed up, one of the dates, the League of Nations fails to pass through American Senate.
Heartbreak. So it's but it's
After
still in
all that work.
It's still in operation in Europe.
Yeah,
and
totally
around the world.
functional
Yeah.
in Europe.
Yeah.
So-
And Woodrow, he led that to happen. He
He was the John the Baptist of...
Yeah,
Okay.
you know the in the Avengers when the guy's like, I guide others to a treasure I cannot possess.
Yes.
That's the Soul Stone guy.
Yeah.
That's sort of like what's happened.
Yeah. Thanks for that was helpful.
John the Baptist, not for someone who works in the church. That's a... yeah, so that all happens. League of Nations goes ahead and is operational. It's missing America. It's missing the Soviet Union. And so this whole, you mess with one of us, you mess with all of us, actually carries a lot less weight now. So much so that when the League of Nations, when Japan invades Manchuria, the League of Nations goes, you can't do that. Like, you watch it, Japan, you watch it. They're like, no, like, we're not doing this. So, yeah, basically, Woodrow Wilson is killed by the League of Nations. It's like a Horcrux. Like,
yeah. It's
Just a part of his soul just ripped out.
yep.
Year 11 Ben is just
His
got
baby.
the basilisk. Just
Oh my word.
so, I think this is we did much more justice to the last couple of years of Woodrow Wilson's life today. We're also kind of covering some ways that World War III could possibly happen. Without actually looking at World War II. So we went straight from World War I to World War III. We do have the course that is, now is a more appropriate time to talk about the course and to land it here. It is just in the link below for you to complete. quick update in terms of who's in the lead for the best preferred Prime Minister. Ben Chifley is in the lead. John Curtin is in second place. Edmund Barton has the bronze right now.
Oh, okay. Well,
So-
good for you, Edmund. Yeah, they're having a go.
So if you want to, again, have your say, we've also had some very kind words of feedback coming in. One of our subscribers, I put a thing up on our YouTube community page so you can read it on the community page, said he's loving the course and that he's made it his goal to memorise every Prime Minister that Australia has. So we
good
do
on
love that. The course will certainly
Good
help
luck
you
to
do
him.
that.
That's probably like part of the curriculum in the US or something, right? To do all the presidents, you know. Maybe that's what we
Could
need
be.
in Australia. Still some patriotism like this,
Yeah.
like our friend of the pod.
Are you
Yeah,
going to do
course.
the course, Ben?
Do you think I should do the course? Do you think I could
We
benefit from the course?
do have 100% staff discount, so...
Yeah, I'll do
Oh,
the
well,
course.
that's the case,
Yeah.
Oh yeah, we lost.
Yeah,
Visuals.
I'll do the course. Practice what you preach, you know. I think it'll help
Yeah.
better prepared for the pod.
Yeah. I'll wait to see what you think of it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sounds good. You can use my login if you
I'll get your passwords out. It's all an elaborate ruse. We'll see everyone next week.